Hi, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to do a book review, a book I just finished. It's called Empty Mansions. Here it is. And this is by Bill Dedman and Paul Clark Newell Jr. Mr. Dedman's background is that he won a Pulitzer Prize in journalism in 1989. So that's an important part of the writing of this book. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later. The Mysterious Life of Huguette. It's not Huguette, it's Huguette. Huguette Clark. The Mysterious Life of Huguette Clark and the Spending of a Great American Fortune. The way the book is organized, that it's about Huguette Clark. In order to explain how she acquired her fortune, you must go back to her father, who was named W.A. Clark. Now, W.A. Clark was one of the richest men in America. He had a fortune that was close to the amounts of Rockefeller and Carnegie. So it starts with W.A. Clark, and he just had an amazing life. He was born in Pennsylvania, and he was a very sharp young man. He didn't go to any advanced schools. Once he became, even before he became an adult, he was already in businesses. He moved west in certain increments. This was in the 1800s when they were expanding the West, and so there were a lot of opportunities. Now he took advantage of that and did very well in these opportunities. So, for example, and he had different types of jobs. So he was successful as a merchant, but he also, at one point, he got associated with the United States government because he got the rights to deliver the mail out in these frontier areas. And so that was lucrative. So he did that for a few years. But then when he moved to Montana, and then he got into mining. He was one of the most successful copper miners in the United States. So for me, the fact that he could go from all these different industries and there's really difficult things to learn, and business and ingenuity. He was just a very smart man, very able to acquire information and process information, and financially astute, and could judge people and manage people. So just an outstanding man. The authors mostly describe the accomplishments of W.A. Clark. One of the things that I want to say about the authors, Bill Dedman is a Pulitzer Prize winner, and the other author is Paul Clark Newell Jr. Now, Paul Clark Newell Jr., he is a descendant of W.A. Clark. Bill Dedman is a journalist. So even though they're co-writers, in my mind, I'm thinking, Dedman's, he's doing most of the paddling here. He's the real writer, but I suppose that Mr. Clark Newell gave the writer access to a lot of the Clark relatives and cousins, and that's the way I kind of see it in my head. I don't have any evidence of that, but that's the way I see it. Mr. Dedman, he's the real genuine writer here. He talks about all the accomplishments of Clark. And so Clark builds this immense fortune, and he was based in Butte, Montana, and there are some houses there that he built. He's really entrenched in the history of mining in Montana, specifically Butte. Now, the thing about copper mining was that at the time that he was discovering copper and learning all the methods for smelting copper and taking copper and getting it to a form where you could market it, like as copper wire, that's really tough to do. He overcame many technical issues in order to develop copper into wire. And the important thing to remember is that at the time, this copper was in great demand because the advancement in the telephone industry was expanding exponentially, and this copper wire was used in telephone lines. This was just like he was just at the right place, the right time, He's very, very impressive as a businessman. So Clark decided to move from Montana to New York City. And then he built a mansion there on what's called Millionaires Row on Fifth Avenue. And that's where Rockefeller had a mansion and Carnegie had a mansion. And so W.A. Clark had a mansion. His was on Fifth Avenue and 77th Street. And because he wanted to enter into New York society. So then there's a lot of stuff about his mansion, which was really amazing. He built this just amazing, one of the biggest houses in the United States. And he bought a bunch of art from Europe. He bought Monets and Renoirs and Degas. And he had just enormous, one of the most largest mansions. And so that's where he lived. Now, he had one marriage where he had 5 children, and then his wife died, and then he married his second wife, Anna. And Anna was much younger than him, almost like 20 years younger than him. And Anna had the 2 daughters, Andre and Huguette. After Huguette is born, she becomes the main focus of the book. But anyway, so they lived in New York, and Huguette had this great upbringing where she, just the most extravagant upbringing with private lessons and maids, knowing the most important people in New York City. She was living there, with Daddy Warbucks. She wasn't an orphan, but her dad was Daddy Warbucks. So she was a debutante. She had the full menu of debutante upbringing and everything that entails. Now, she was actually born in France, and she spent her first years in France and learned French first, but she was an American citizen. So when they returned to New York, that's where she grew up. So I don't want to go into the whole thing. W.A. Clark died, and when he died, this fortune was split up. Not all. So he had his first wife who was dead, but he gave part of his fortune to the surviving children of his first marriage. Not all the children lived, but he did split it between them and his second wife, Anna. Anna inherited all the money. She raised Andre and Huguette. Now, one of the things that W.A. Clark had done is he bought a large property in Santa Barbara, which is where I live, and it's called Bellas Guardo. Now, after W.A. Clark died, Anna really liked the property, and she built this amazing mansion on the Bellas Guardo property in Santa Barbara. That is an important part of the book. Andre was a very sheltered child, and she didn't have a lot of confidence, and so then she went to Girl Scout camp, and she really liked it because she got to be more of herself. But then she got sick in her teens, and she died. And Huguette became the main heir to the Clark fortune. Huguette was a debutante, and so then the mother was trying to find a husband for her, and she found a man, and they married, and it was this extravagant wedding with expensive jewelry and expensive gifts. The thing that happened was they ended up separating very soon after the marriage, and then they divorced. And it turned out that Huguette never consummated the marriage. She didn't want to consummate the marriage. And she never married again. So then eventually Anna died, and Huguette inherited all the W.A. Clark fortune, enormous amount of money. So that's that's where I'm going to stop right now. There's plenty more in the book. Huguette became a recluse, but at the same time she had a lot of people that she corresponded with. She was very generous with her money. But that's kind of where I'm going to end it. I want to leave some things for you to discover and entice you to read the book. But back to the writing with Mr. Dedman and Mr. Newell. I want to say that this book is a very good book, and I recommend this book. I enjoyed it, especially because it has to do with some local things that go on here. I've read a lot of biographies, and this is a good biography, but it's a very practical biography. It's a kind of a fact-based biography, and it's written in a journalistic manner, you know, Chicago style of writing, the Chicago Book of Style. You know, it's a very magazine style. It's not a literary style. So while it's a great book, and this is a Pulitzer Prize author, it's not literature. It lacks the qualities of being literature because the style is interchangeable between people. You know, they learn this institutional style of how to write, and then they write, and it's effective, and it gets the story told, but it's not literature. So I just want to make that point. That's why that's why it falls short of being an extraordinary book. At the same time, I do recommend it. It's a great biography of a person and a historical and some of the history of the United States and empty mansions. Thanks for watching.